And then number 2 says, to walk in all his ways. When we say we belong to Jesus, so why is it important to walk in all his ways? It's because our lives represent who he is. And if you turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 20. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 20. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were pleading through us, and we implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. But we are ambassadors for Christ. Have you ever thought of yourself as an ambassador for Christ? See, when a person is appointed as an ambassador for his country and goes to another country, he becomes the representative of the home country. You know, it's just been in the news a few months ago that the former Federal Treasurer, Joe Hockey, is now the Australian ambassador for the United States of America. He represents our country of Australia in America. So that whatever the ambassador says or does, it's a reflection on the country he represents. Just as the Governor-General is a representative of the Queen in this country. And their life is expected to be of the same standard as those who they represent. Now, when we belong to Jesus, then we are his ambassadors, and our lives should be a reflection of him. Jesus had this to say about the religious leaders of the day. You'll find it in Matthew chapter 23 and verses 1 to 3. Matthew chapter 23 and verses 1 to 3. Then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do. But do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. In other words, their walk didn't match their talk. And we need to ask ourselves every day, does my walk match my talk? If I'm Jesus' ambassador, does the way I talk match the way I walk? Because Jesus did give us a very strict warning. If you turn to Matthew chapter 7 and verses 21 to 23. Matthew chapter 7 and verses 21 to 23. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. In other words, if your walk doesn't match your talk, you're in trouble. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. You see, they had the talk. They were able to prophesy in the name of Jesus, cast out demons in his name, and do many wonders in his name. But he says their walk didn't match their talk because they practiced lawlessness. Jesus will not recognize those who say one thing and then do the opposite. And when we belong to him, we are his ambassadors. Do we bring discredit to his name in the way we walk? Or is our walk such that it matches our talk? There's many instructions that Paul gives through the epistles about how to walk, but we'll just look at one in Ephesians 5 and verses 1 and 2. Ephesians chapter 5 and verses 1 and 2. It says, "Therefore be imitators of God as dear children, and walk in love, as Christ also has loved us and given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling aroma." To walk in love as Christ has walked. And a bit further on in this chapter, he says we're to walk in light, that our lives reveal his goodness, righteousness and truth. You see, if you walk in the light radiates out, doesn't it? And if we are his ambassadors and walking in him, then our lives should radiate out his goodness, his righteousness and his truth. So why then should we walk in his ways? Well, when we love God, we will desire to walk in all his ways. You know, just as a child copies what his parents do, and we are often amused to see a little one exactly following and imitating his father. Well, so we need to imitate Jesus. We need to follow, we need to walk in his ways, because we love him and we desire to please him.